My sister asked me to support her cheating on my brother-in-law as a loyalty test. Now my husband thinks I hid it from him and my marriage is ruined. Okay, so this is going to be a roller coaster of a read, but please stay with me. I've been married to my husband, Nate, for the past 4 years, and before that, we dated for 2 years, so we've been together for a total of 6 years. Nate is truly an amazing person, he's incredibly warm-hearted, and that's something that I fell in love with right away. One of the biggest blessings in my relationship with Nate has been the wonderful connection I've built with his family. From the very first time I met them, I felt like I belonged. His parents are some of the sweetest and most easygoing people I've ever known. There was never any awkwardness or feeling like I had to prove myself to them. They accepted me right away with open arms. I honestly consider myself so fortunate because I know how challenging it can be for some people to build good relationships with their in-laws, but with Nate's family, it was the exact opposite. Nate's parents always wanted a daughter, and in some ways, I think I've filled that role for them over the years. Whether it's family gatherings, holidays, or even just day-to-day conversations, his parents always make me feel included, loved, and cared for. Nate is the oldest in his family, and he has a younger brother, Matt. They've always been close. Since meeting me, Matt has treated me like his own sister, and I've always appreciated how easy it was to form a strong relationship with him. After Nate and I got married, I started to notice something interesting whenever our two families would meet up. My younger sister, Tara, and Nate's brother, Matt, would often flirt with each other. It wasn't subtle, either, there was this undeniable chemistry between them that was hard to ignore. Tara, being the outgoing and playful person she is, was clearly enjoying the attention. She's always been a bit of a flirt, with a carefree attitude, and has had her fair share of casual flings during her college days. Relationships, especially serious ones, have never been a priority for her, and she tends to live life on her own terms, enjoying the moment rather than worrying about commitment. So when Tara casually announced to me one day that Matt had asked her out on a date, my initial reaction was a mixture of surprise and, if I'm being honest, a bit of nervousness. I know my sister, and I also know Matt. Tara's spontaneous, fun-loving nature is great, but Matt is a very different type of guy. He's incredibly sensitive, kind-hearted, and the kind of person who doesn't take relationships lightly. He's the opposite of the guys Tara usually spends time with, and I was worried that if she wasn't looking for something serious, this could end up with someone getting hurt, most likely Matt. I pulled Tara aside and had a talk with her. I told her that I didn't think it was a good idea to date my husband's brother, especially if she wasn't in it for the long haul. I wanted her to understand that Matt wasn't just another guy she could fool around with for a while and then move on. If she wasn't ready for something real, I felt it would be better for her to respectfully decline his offer. I didn't want to sound overprotective, but I knew how much a situation like this could complicate things for all of us. Our families are so intertwined, and the last thing I wanted was unnecessary drama. But Tara brushed off my concerns. She's always been independent and hates it when I try to give her advice, especially about her love life. She told me that I needed to stop worrying about her and just let her live her life the way she wants to. Hence, I decided to bite my tongue and keep my mouth shut, even though I still had my reservations. To my surprise, their date went really well. Tara texted me not long after, raving about how great Matt was. She seemed genuinely excited, which was rare for her when it came to dating. At the same time, Matt called me and Nate the very next day, practically brimming with happiness. He went on about how cool my sister is and how much fun he had with her. Hearing both of them speak so positively about the date put me at ease, at least for the moment. It felt like maybe I had worried too much, and there was a chance this could turn out to be something more meaningful than I had initially thought. Over the months, Matt and Tara's relationship continued to develop, but I wouldn't say it was always smooth sailing. They did have a lot of fights. It wasn't uncommon for my sister, Tara, to call me crying or complaining about something that had gone wrong between them. Sometimes, her frustrations seemed small, but other times, they were more serious, and she would seem really upset. At the same time, Nate also started getting calls from Matt where he would vent about Tara and how she was behaving in their relationship. Despite the occasional drama, there was only so much that me and Nate could do for them. We could only offer advice when they asked for it, but ultimately, we knew they had to figure things out on their own. There was one incident, though, that really shook us. It was the middle of the night, and Nate and I were sound asleep when we were abruptly woken up by a phone call. It was Matt. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable, and it turned out that he had been arrested. Nate and I rushed to the police station, both of us feeling both confused and concerned. Matt? Arrested? It seemed so out of character. When we arrived at the station, we learned that Matt had gotten into a fight with someone at a bar. Both of them had been arguing and the situation had escalated to the point where they had physically fought and caused damage to the bar's property. I couldn't believe it. Matt, the sensitive, kind-hearted guy I had always known, getting into a bar brawl? It just didn't add up. He had never been a violent person, so hearing that he had been involved in something like this was shocking. We quickly bailed him out and waited for his release, still reeling from the news and trying to process everything. When Matt finally came out of the police station, looking disheveled and exhausted, he explained what had really happened. It turns out that the fight hadn't been just some random altercation at the bar, but that he had caught Tara with another guy. Nate and I looked utterly stunned. The hurt in Matt's voice was palpable as he recounted how things had been tense between him and Tara for weeks. He had noticed Tara growing distant, her attention elsewhere, and he had suspected that something was off. But every time he asked her what was going on, she never gave him a clear answer. She would brush off his concerns, leaving Matt in a state of uncertainty and growing frustration. That night, however, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was really wrong, so he decided to follow her to the bar. When he walked in, his worst fears were confirmed. He saw Tara with another man. He did not recognize the guy and his heart sank when he realized what was happening. Feeling betrayed and hurt, he confronted Tara right then and there, demanding to know what was going on. Tara was visibly shocked to see Matt. She swore up and down that the guy she was with was just a coworker and that there was nothing romantic going on between them. But Matt wasn't convinced. After weeks of sensing something was wrong, the situation felt too suspicious for him to just take her word for it. He kept pressing her, trying to get the truth, but the tension only escalated. That's when the other guy stepped in, making things even worse. Instead of backing off, the guy had the audacity to tell Matt to calm down and then went on to say that Matt needed to be more respectful to Tara and learn to trust his girlfriend. It was like adding fuel to the fire. Matt, already feeling betrayed and on edge, snapped at that point. Being told by a stranger, especially one he suspected was involved with Tara, to respect her when he felt completely disrespected himself was too much for him to handle. One thing led to another, and before Matt knew it, things spiraled out of control. Matt threw the first punch, and the fight quickly escalated, leading to the property damage and Matt's eventual arrest. As Matt recounted the story, I could see the frustration and regret in his eyes. He wasn't proud of what had happened, but he thought he was in the right because he felt Tara had betrayed her. I was absolutely furious with my sister, Tara, and called her to confront her. I couldn't believe what Matt had told us, and I felt like I needed answers. As soon as she picked up the phone, I started yelling, letting out all my anger and frustration. Tara stayed quiet, letting me vent, but then she calmly explained that she really had been with a coworker that night and insisted that there was nothing romantic going on between them. She was adamant that Matt had completely misunderstood the situation. I was still upset, so I told her that Matt had been arrested because of the altercation with the guy at the bar. That's when Tara dropped another bombshell. She told me that during the fight, Matt had actually ended up punching her as well. Without a second thought, I left Nate to deal with his brother while I rushed over to Tara's place to check on her. When she opened the door, what I saw shook me to my core. Tara stood there with a black eye. I was speechless for a moment, trying to process the sight of my little sister in this condition. This wasn't just a fight at a bar, this was something far more alarming. I couldn't wrap my head around what was happening between Matt and Tara. We sat down, and Tara began to tell me everything. She explained that while Matt might seem like a sweet and sensitive guy to the outside world, there was another side to him that she had been dealing with in their relationship. According to Tara, Matt had become increasingly possessive over time during their relationship. At first, she didn't mind it too much, she even found it a little flattering that he cared so much about her. But as the months went by, his possessiveness turned into something much darker. She wasn't allowed to hang out with her friends as much anymore because Matt would always insist on tagging along or guilt-tripping her into staying with him. It got to the point where Tara felt like she had no life outside of her relationship with Matt. The night at the bar was the tipping point. She told me that she had been with her coworker, just relaxing and chatting, when suddenly Matt showed up out of nowhere. He must have followed her, suspicious that she was meeting someone behind his back. Tara said she would have happily explained everything to him, but Matt didn't give her a chance. He was already worked up when he confronted her, and things escalated quickly. According to Tara, she tried to get him to calm down, but he was too angry, too upset to listen. And then, in the middle of his altercation with the other guy, he accidentally struck her in the chaos. Tara made it clear that she didn't believe Matt had hit her intentionally. She thought it was definitely a mistake in the heat of the moment, but that didn't make it any less frightening. She admitted that she still cared for Matt and didn't think he meant to hurt her, but she also acknowledged that their relationship had become unhealthy. I did my best to convince Tara to break up with Matt. After everything that had happened, I felt strongly that the relationship wasn't healthy for either of them, and it was time for her to move on. Tara seemed to agree with me at first, and I thought I had finally gotten through to her, that she would let go of Matt and start fresh. However, when she eventually tried to break things off with Matt, he was suddenly incredibly apologetic. He seemed to have had a complete change of heart, believing Tara's version of events instead. He apologized over and over again, feeling terrible about what had happened, especially the black eye he had given her, and blamed himself for everything. He promised that things would change and suggested that they go for couples counseling to work on their issues. Every day, he would send her apology bouquets and messages, trying to make up for the damage he had done. Eventually, Tara agreed, and despite my concerns, they started working on their relationship with a therapist. For a while, it seemed like they were making progress. My sister would tell me how they were working on their communication and addressing the issues that had caused so much tension between them. Eventually, they reached a point where they seemed better at handling their conflicts. Both of them seemed committed to making the relationship work, and I could see them putting in the effort to improve. To my surprise, they even moved in together last year, a few months after the incident. As much as I had been against the relationship at first, it looked like they were genuinely trying hard to turn things around. My sister would always reassure me that she and Matt were doing better than ever. This year, Tara and Matt announced their wedding unexpectedly. Matt worked in a company where he had to frequently travel a lot, and recently, he and Tara had been on one of his business trips together. There, he had decided to propose to Tara on a whim. She had said yes, and now both of them were planning on getting married soon. My sister was absolutely over the moon, buzzing with excitement, and my parents were thrilled for her. Matt's parents were ecstatic too, especially since they had always wanted another daughter in the family. But I couldn't help the lingering sense of worry. So, I decided to have a conversation with my sister, pulling her aside to ask if she was really sure about what she was doing. I just wanted to be certain that she was making this decision with a clear mind, given everything they had been through. I reminded her of how volatile things had been last year, especially with that huge bar fight. Tara, however, was confident, more than I had ever seen her before. She told me that she and Matt had worked through things and were absolutely made for each other. I asked her if she was rushing into getting married, but she was adamant that she knew what she was doing and that she was ready to spend the rest of her life with him. Realizing that my sister was sure about her decision, I reassured her that she had my full support for her wedding. I didn't want to cast any shadows over her happiness. Tara smiled and gave me a big hug. She then told me that she wanted me to be her maid of honor. Hearing those words brought tears to my eyes. I felt incredibly honored and moved by her trust in me. Tara and Matt's wedding took place just last week, and it was an event to remember. Matt and his parents went all out to make sure that every aspect of the wedding reflected Tara's dreams. They spared no expense, ensuring that every little detail was exactly what Tara had envisioned. My parents contributed some as well, but it was clear that the groom's family had put in a lot of effort and money to make this extravagant celebration happen. Unlike me, Tara always had a taste for the finer, more over-the-top things in life, and her wedding was no different. She had wanted a grand, lavish affair, and that's exactly what she got. The guest list was huge, with everyone from both families as well as all of Matt and Tara's friends in attendance. The ceremony itself was absolutely beautiful. After the wedding, Nate and I dropped Matt and Tara off at the airport for their honeymoon. Tara kept me updated about her adventurous honeymoon with selfies and texts. Yesterday, my sister finally returned from her honeymoon and wanted to catch up over some coffee. Of course, I agreed. I had missed her while she was away, and I was eager to hear all about the honeymoon and how things were going for her as a newlywed. I thought it would be nice to sit down, relax, and chat about life after such a big milestone. When I arrived at Tara and Matt's place, my sister informed me that Matt was away on one of his business trips as usual, so it was just the two of us, which felt cozy and familiar. We settled in, talking about random things, our family, relationships, and, of course, her big wedding day. At one point, as we laughed about the whirlwind that was her wedding, I teasingly reminded her that she was now a married woman. I joked that she couldn't just behave like she was single anymore, expecting her to roll her eyes or fire back with some witty comeback. But instead, she went quiet. I noticed her shift slightly as she sat up on the bed, her face suddenly serious. She then told me that she needed my help with something. My eyebrows raised in curiosity as I asked her what she meant, wondering what could have happened. That's when Tara started to explain that while she loved Matt and fully intended to stay with him for the rest of her life, she had other needs. I wasn't sure what she was getting at, so I asked her what she meant by that. My sister then confessed that she wasn't naturally monogamous and that she liked having fun with other people outside of her relationships. I stared at her, trying to wrap my head around what she was saying. The realization hit me hard, like a slap in the face, as it dawned on me that she was saying she wanted to see other people while married to Matt. I was stunned. It had only been a few days since her wedding, and here she was, already talking about seeing other people? I couldn't believe it. I asked her if she really meant what she was implying, hoping she might backtrack or explain it away as a joke. But instead, she grew frustrated. She told me this was why she never felt like she could be her true self around me, that I was too rigid as her older sibling and never knew how to have fun. Then, Tara asked me bluntly if I had ever cheated on Nate. I shook my head, and told her honestly that I couldn't even imagine doing something like that. I love my husband, and the thought of betraying him in that way would never even cross my mind. She seemed almost amused by my response, and then she asked me, "What if Nate cheated on you?" I looked at her seriously and told her that if Nate ever cheated on me and I found out, I would leave him since cheating was something that I just could not accept. I explained that I can't control what others do or force them to live by my rules, but that doesn't mean I would compromise who I am or what I believe in. I told her I had always been clear about my boundaries, and if those were crossed, I wouldn't hesitate to walk away. I said all of this, hoping she would understand that honesty and loyalty were the foundations of a marriage. However, Tara shook her head and told me she was different from me. She explained that she craved excitement, saying she had always tested the waters in every one of her relationships with one-night stands frequently. My jaw dropped as I listened, feeling a mix of disbelief and frustration. I immediately asked her if she had ever cheated on Matt. There was a moment of hesitation before she sheepishly admitted that she had. I felt a surge of anger, as I realized that Matt had been right with his suspicions about Tara before. My sister was clearly fooling him. This is when I asked her the question that was burning in my mind: why had she agreed to marry him in the first place if she had already cheated on him and planned to continue doing so even after marriage? Tara told me it was hard to explain things to someone like me who was satisfied with just one partner. She said that for her, life wasn't so clear-cut. According to her, she liked having a loyal partner to come back home to every night after indulging in other activities. She argued that she didn't even consider her one-night stands as cheating and that they were simply like doing physical activities with strangers, which floored me. I argued, if you don't think it's cheating, then why not just tell Matt about it? She immediately shook her head, saying that Matt would never understand her needs since he was always so controlling. She admitted that he was a one-woman man and that he wouldn't be able to handle the truth of who she was. It felt like she was just using Matt for her benefit since he was a safe option. Then Tara continued to tell me how she needed my help going forward. As her big sister, she expected me to show my loyalty by helping her cover up her future cheating escapades. She explained that now that she was married, she couldn't just come up with random excuses to leave the house. Matt was too smart for that, and she feared he'd grow suspicious. That's why she wanted me to lie for her, to tell Matt that she was with me whenever she was out with another man. I couldn't believe that she was asking me to become complicit in her lies. I asked her, "Are you already seeing someone right now?" She smiled, telling me that she had made plans for the night to go to a bar and find someone since Matt was on a business trip and she was feeling lonely. She was so casual about it, as if this was a completely normal thing to do. My heart sank as I realized how serious she was about dragging me into this mess. I didn't know what to say. I was shocked that she could so easily compartmentalize her love for Matt while planning to betray him. And the fact that she expected me to help her lie to him, to actively participate in deceiving him, was too much to bear. I loved her, but I couldn't justify becoming a part of this deceit. I knew that helping her would make me just as guilty as she was. This was no longer just about Tara's choices, it had now become my problem too. When I got home that night, Nate immediately sensed that something was off. We've always been close, sharing every detail of our days and leaning on each other for support. I wasn't sure how to tell him what had happened with Tara. The thought of admitting that my sister was a cheater, just days after marrying his brother, was overwhelming. I felt a heavy weight in my chest, and I couldn't shake the unease that had settled over me. That night was torturous. I couldn't sleep at all, tossing and turning, my mind racing with the shock of Tara's revelations and the guilt of having to keep such a secret. When morning came, I woke up to Nate preparing breakfast for us since it is the weekend. As we sat down to eat, I felt a gnawing sense of guilt for hiding such a vital piece of information from him. So, after breakfast, I broke down and finally confessed everything to him. I laid bare all the details of my conversation with Tara, her admissions of infidelity, and her request for my complicity in her deceit. Nate was visibly shaken. He listened intently, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. Once I had finished, he retreated to his study to call Matt and discuss the situation. I stayed in the living room, giving him the space he needed to process everything. Nate and Matt's conversation went on for a long time. When Nate emerged from the study, he looked agitated. I immediately asked him about what Matt had said and what their plans were moving forward. But instead of answering me, Nate's first question was why I had never told him about Tara's cheating. I was taken aback, and pointed out that I had only learned about Tara's behavior the previous day and had told him as soon as I could. Nate then looked me straight in the eye and questioned whether I was lying and that maybe I had always known this about my sister, suggesting that this might all be a plan by me and Tara to secure her some sort of alimony by getting her married to Matt. I was stunned by his accusation. I tried to explain that I had no part in Tara's actions and that had I known about her behavior, I would have never let her marry Matt. But Nate's doubts only seemed to deepen. He then asked me whether I had ever cheated on him in the past and if I had Tara cover up my mistakes also. The accusation was hurtful and bewildering. I had never given Nate any reason to doubt me. I was committed to our marriage and couldn't believe that he would question my integrity based on Tara's actions. I tried to explain, but Nate didn't seem to believe me. He said he couldn't trust me completely after hearing about Tara's behavior and he felt like he no longer knew me or my sister properly. I felt betrayed by Nate's response. I hadn't expected him to doubt me or think that I was somehow complicit in Tara's deceit. My husband has since gone to meet with his parents and talk to them about Tara and Matt. He hasn't talked much with me the whole day and has pretty much ignored me. I feel horrible about what my sister has done and feel like my own marriage has been destroyed due to her. Am I the a-hole for revealing the truth to my husband? Should I have not exposed Tara? Update 1. Wow, how has this post blown up? I have never really had so many notifications from Reddit and it feels a bit overwhelming. For everyone asking, I am sure Matt will be confronting Tara soon about her cheating escapades and my sister will be eventually calling me to yell at me for exposing her. Honestly, I couldn't care less. All I can think about for now is that my husband is suspicious of me because of my sister's antics. I would like to clarify that Nate is a very loyal and trustworthy partner, hence he has been a bit rattled by all the information that I shared with him. I plan on sitting down with him later and having a more detailed discussion on this to pacify his doubts. Update 2. Nate and I talked last night. After he returned from his parents' place, he apologized to me for his initial reaction. I was so nervous and anxious that I broke down on his shoulder. He felt really bad and kept apologizing while stroking my hair. He clarified that he was truly blindsided by Tara's secret, and when he spoke to Matt, he felt even more heartbroken for his brother. It turns out his brother was the one who had planted seeds of doubt in Nate's mind by asking why I had never told them about Tara's character before, and if perhaps I might have been involved somehow. However, when Nate spoke to his parents, they all agreed that they had known me for a long time and were certain I'd never do anything like that to him. Nate assured me that he trusts me completely and will never doubt me again. I'm relieved that this misunderstanding between us has been resolved. I am also sure that Matt didn't mean to blame me, so when the time comes and he wants to have a discussion with me directly, I will clarify things with him as well. Update 3. So, Matt came back from his business trip and, as expected, confronted Tara about everything. Nate told me that Matt and Tara had a huge fight, during which Tara refused to admit anything. When she learned that I had exposed her, she tried to turn the tables on me by gaslighting Matt, telling him not to believe me and even accused me of cheating on Nate. In the middle of the argument, Matt snatched Tara's phone and locked himself in the bathroom to check it while she continued yelling and banging on the door. He found all the evidence of her cheating and sent it to himself via email. Matt told Nate that he was shaking with anger after reading all her messages to various men, so when he came out of the bathroom, he simply handed her phone back and began to pack his bags quietly. He decided to leave the house quickly as he did not want to do something that he would regret later. Later, Tara did call and yell at me for betraying her and accused me of being a bad sister. I calmly explained to her that she couldn't get away with this behavior and that I would never support someone like her just because she is my family. She called me every name in the book and even threatened to ruin my life. Hence, I've decided to cut her out of our lives. My parents, after learning everything, are extremely disappointed in her. My dad, who is very strict, finds it both shameful and unholy that his own daughter would do such things behind her partner's back, even after marriage. They've announced they won't be helping her ever again. In the end, Matt and Tara will be getting divorced soon.